Okay, before we begin, let's talk about materials. First, the brushes. I'm going to use few flat and long filbert white brushes, very soft. Rosemary combers, this mongoose, master choice, for general washes and for big shapes. My main working brushes are going to be these long filberts, small size, and long sable rounds. Let's talk about pigments now. I will be using lead white. You can use titanium white if you like. For me, lead is preferable because it will dry very fast. I will use lead tin yellow, raw sienna white, raw umber, burnt umber, Venetian red, and green umber, and of course bone black. So as you can see, the palette today is very muted, or I will say earth tones palette. I will be also using this light blue. You can use King's blue instead if you like. I chose light blue because it contains cobalt, so it will dry faster. We will use this palette knife for mixing. This is my medium Galkit light mixed with mineral spirits. I look at the reference and I try to understand what is going to be the lightest light. So for me, the lightest light is the top of the head, and actually it is the hair. So the skin, even the lightest parts of the skin are going to be darker than the hair. And if we look at the skin, we can notice that the shadows in the skin are not so dark. The light is rather diffused, soft. There are no strong and sharp cast shadows, very soft. But still, we can see the difference in the halftones. So the side of the face, the cheekbone area of the face closer to the core shadow is darker than the opposite side of the face, which is closer to the light. And it is good, so we can mix accordingly. The biggest problem, especially, but it's, I can see it a lot in my students' work and also in work of other people, that the skin is rather too pale, or relationship between the shadow and the light are wrong. And if relationships between the shadow, if the contrast between the shadow and the light is broken or just wrong, it will look like different type of the skin altogether. So we should be very careful when we paint different skin tones to match the actual contrast. And the biggest issue with color is that since we are pushing the skin too light, it is making the lightest halftone in the skin very chalky, very foggy, because of amount of white we are using for such mixture. Okay, so let's start drawing first. I need the brush which is going to be really precise, so maybe this one, you see, medium. So I dip it in the medium, I dilute this umber, yes, and first I want to indicate the top of the head. It is going to be somewhere here. Now I measure with my brush. I measure the halfway up. So this is the center, and I do the same now with horizontal. Okay, so this is the center of the canvas. And yes, so they are going to be the center. So I can find the center on my monitor as well, on my reference. Center, yes, something like that. The hair will go like this. The shoulder, another shoulder. The hair will go here. Yes. When I look at my reference, when I do the same, the measurements of the center, I see that the center is aligned with the bottom of the lower lip. So the mouth is going to be somewhere here. And the nose probably here. The brows, something like that. I see that the center line of the face is slightly shifted to the left from the center of my canvas. And I just want it to remain this way, but since we're going to lose the drawing anyways, the most important, I do believe, is just to indicate the biggest, the most crucial parts, the most crucial shapes of the head. So the chin is probably going to be here. So instead of diluting with the mineral spirits, I dilute it with my mixture, with my medium. If you don't have such medium, you can just use Gamsol mineral spirits. But don't use oils in this stage. Not just for the reason of oil is, not because oil is just increasing drying time. Also, oil can create more problems than help, and to help at this stage. So try to avoid using oil in the beginning stages of painting. So the core channel. And you see, I use the same brush. It's why I like these long filbers, because I can paint with a wide side of it, and also I can draw very thin lines if I need to. So the mouth, everything is very, it's not really accurate, I would say now, but what I'm really looking for is just general placement, as I say. And I try to work with the big masses right away. So for this, probably we will need wider brush now. And we can see, can we just map the shadows in her head as I see them. So the cast shadow in the neck, the form shadow in her face, and the dark shapes in the hair. They're just, I squint, they're blending in some sort of dark shape. So the neck will go here. And the necklace will be here. And the dress, yeah, something like that. the upper lip. Yeah, I can just quickly map it now. And also just softening here, so the sharp edge will not distract me. Yeah, the eye is going to be smaller, the nose, the muzzle of the mouth. So you see, it's kind of it's more like a stain now. It's nothing really precise, but I want to work from general to specific. If you feel more confident with drawing transferred before, just do it the same way as we did in Mamadou painting. So you can make drawing first, transfer it to the canvas and do the same. But for such simple portrait, I've decided to go without drawing, to draw with the brushes right away. So with a green umber and with a medium, you see I dilute a lot. It's more like watercolor now. I just want to make a wash in the background, because we know that the background, yeah, even dark, I even add a little bit of bone black here. We know that the background is going to be, yeah, as dark as dark, I think. Very dark. So it is not the final value, of course. It is just darker than the darks in the head. Or even if it is not really darker, at least it has different temperature, different color. So it's more like mapping now, the blocking. And also, it is time now for me to see if composition works or not. So the center was here. The center was here. And the lip should go somewhere there. One nostril, another nostril. So now we are, you see, I even can draw the tip of the nose, the planes of tip of the nose, just to help me with the construction. Okay, the brow will go slightly higher, somewhere here. I see there is a peculiar inclination of this brow, so it is slightly lower than that one. I don't know if I want it to keep, if I want it to be visible on the painting or not yet, but at least I want to notice it now. And the same with this eye, it is slightly narrower, so it is more close than this eye. It is very personal, and it is how we can find the likeness. Sometimes we just look for some interesting peculiarities. Okay, so something like that. It's more like optical representation of the big shapes, and now I want to yes, I want to indicate her chin since she's looking slightly, it's like she's looking down when I look at this reference. She's looking slightly down, so it will make her chin more prominent than usual. But anyways, we can consider it as a start. And you see what I'm doing? I'm smoothing things. I don't want the marks to dictate the optical illusion. So I would rather just smooth things out than to have than having really wrong representation. So anyways, we are moving forward now. Mogri number, yeah, I will use. So raw umber again, mixed with green umber. Now this here, with a bit of green, I will indicate the shadow here in her hair. So I want to have this side of the hair in the dark. The same for this. So when we work tonally, we don't really care about colors at this stage. I focused mostly on the values now and on the temperatures. So I see that the darks in the hair are more green than darks in the skin. So for the skin, more raw umber, although even raw umber is too warm for such shadows. And for the hair, more green umber. And we can mix it with blue and raw sienna. Probably this was too much. So I take just mineral spirits and I remove it back. So you see at this stage you can work this way too. So and I'm using the same rag, same paper towel, just to map the hair. Before we continue, I want to map the skin. So we take raw umber again, raw sienna light, and let's in yellow this time. Some sort of just general looking and a little bit of white, general looking half tone of such skin. It is darker than we see it, of course, but I'm not going to cover everything completely. So I will be using very diluted mixture. So let's try to take this brush Again, I'm dipping it in the medium. More. And we can start from here. So my goal now is to get rid of the white of the canvas. Even more Latin yellow, a little bit of blue. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I've indicated the placement for the necklace, so I can just cover things now and deal with them later. The most important is just to cover everything without smudging the drawing too much. So yeah, something like that. Yeah, probably the chin should not be so prominent, but we'll deal with it later. So as usual, I try to solve problems one by one. First, the general placement of the shapes. Now, just mapping the value structure. And let us just establish some color node of the dress. Yeah, burnt umber and Venetian red. With a little bit of raw sienna. I'll take another brush and again jump into the light skin mixture. I want to map it here too. And this is one of the benefits of using Galkit Light as a medium, because if I was just using mineral spirits to dilute my paint, the smudge will be more severe now. But now it is covering on the previous my marks from the 20 minutes ago. They are not so. They're quite dry already, so I can just cover them, paint over them now. So let's continue with the blocking and the drawing. And for the lips, I will use the red mixture. Maybe we can make it slightly lighter. So you see, I don't use white to make mixture look lighter. I use Latin yellow instead. And I do believe it is really good practice when you avoid using a lot of white in the halftones and in the shadows, of course, at least at this stage, or not at least at any stage, but now I want to establish luminosity, because for me this reference is ideal for practicing luminosity in oil painting, especially luminosity of the skin. This kind of a greenish mixture will go here. So Now I will try to quickly map and establish the bigger shapes in the halftones, all the relationships. So the shadows are going to be slightly darker. And I don't want them to be extremely warm because I see that they are rather pale. So I use raw umber and green umber mixture. And again, we're just applying this. This stage of painting should be done very slow. You see what I'm doing now? I'm taking this pile of generic skin tone I've mixed, and I'm trying to make darker versions of it using different colors, because like here we sense some reds, maybe not so dark. So yes, something like that. Here a little bit of blue primary. So before I jump into the lights, I want to establish the darker halftones first and their relationships with the shadow. And as I said before, it is tonal working today, so I don't really I'm not trying to match the colors now. A little bit purplish halftone here. And also, I think this lower lip should be lighter. So this initial blocking stage, if it takes more time than you expect, don't worry about it. Paint slow, don't try to rush. It is the key to successful painting. Okay, now we have the ear, and we have also the earrings. So one is here and one is there, something like that. I don't know. I will just indicate with some reds because I see some red stones in her earrings. And now let's just map the ears themselves. Yeah, the lips are very off now. It bothers me, but I must ignore it. It is another thing to master, is how you can ignore certain problems, especially in the details or in the features, because you are going to find everything later. like here, the eye, the iris of the eye is just dark shape for me when I squint, and I see that it is blending with the shadows here, so I'm just smoothing. Now I want to cover everything here, so it will not affect my perception. So yeah, it's like I'm not trying to draw things precisely, but of course we need to be very accurate with the general placement, because it is easy to render on top of correct blocking. It is merrymaking. If the blocking is not correct, we're in trouble. Doesn't mean that we cannot fix such problem. But if we want to paint efficiently, we must be very slow and careful in the beginning. Okay, the nose. Let's go up for this part, the forehead. And you see what I'm doing? I'm constantly trying to smooth things. I don't want anything sharp or very contrast to dry here, especially in the transitions. The shadow will go here. Also very important for the likeness, how shadows are distributed, because they show the facial structure and the anatomy of the muscles. Very, like not anatomy, not just anatomy, how muscles are contracted. So all these personal, individual ways of smiling or just looking at someone or something. Even lighter now, I see that the lower lip is even lighter. So let's yellow again. Something here, and yes, why not to apply something in this part too. Now I'm starting to notice that, yes, let's say the eye will be here, the cheekbone structure will go there. So yeah, obviously this mark was too bold and inappropriate. Long flat with a medium again. And now when we have the shadow mixture for her skin, I can try to find the shadows in the hair. Yes, and also the background. Something like that. But I don't want to paint really opaque. So let us, you see this initial wash, we don't need it anymore. It was just to get rid of the white. So now I think the burnt umber is going to be good base. For the background. So it is more like red primary, you can see it. We can mix it with the bone black, but it is going to be brown. I wanted to create the contrast not just with values of the hair, but also to create temperature shift. The reddish brown background versus kind of a greenish blue of some areas, especially here in the hair, they will create nice color harmony because they are complementary colors. But it is not the final. It is not the final background mixture. It is another benefit of tonal approach that we can establish the relationships of the main tones, main values in the composition, and after we can gradually build on top of them, hence the use of earth pigments in the beginning. So my recommendation for the darks, very simple mixtures like burnt umber and black. Thin transparent paint application, so diluted with medium, very little medium, but you see it's like this, scrubbing it in. You will see later how will it work and how we can build the Rembrandtish type of the background using this tonal approach. And also in the later stage of this painting I will show you how to create the radiation effect of the skin. What do I see now? I see that the nose is shifted from the center line. So you see, it's like I was just painting the background. So for the moment I shifted my attention from the face, from the features and the placement to something else. And when I returned, when I came back, I immediately noticed that there is a centerline problem, which is very normal, especially when we don't have initial drawing. And you see, what I do, I just smudge things and I shift things. I will refine everything later, but every time I notice something off from point of view of drawing, I just try to fix it immediately. So big shapes, placement of the big shapes, and centerline relationships, they are most important. So I don't wait for the next stages to fix such severe problems. Okay, so something like that here, more like this there, yeah, it goes here. Just some shadow shape, and yeah, let's map the necklace. This, that, the center line is going to be here. I ignore the highlights in the metal. I squint and I see some, yeah, quite thick, dark shape, something like that, and we have the actual amulet here, just for an indication of it, for the placement. Center line, muscle goes here, the corner of the mouth will be shifted. The lower lip, yeah, I already see that the lips are going to be a challenge, which is very normal. Yes, let's continue. So now the nose and the philtrum. So you see, I'm trying to map the value changes. But before we go, I want to finish the hair first. So I just, yeah, this part is bothering me. Yeah, I think I should indicate the ear. Here is the beginning of it. Yes, like that. So the hair can be slightly narrower. Yeah, now I see it. I think we should reduce it here. And now this upper lip, a bit lighter and a bit wider. Not like this, but I will cover it later with a skin mixture. So I do it very often. I paint lips, for example, or any other shapes with a strong local color bigger than I see them, and I cover them later with a skin tone mixture, so it's like blending into each other instead of looking for the actual edge. Medium again, the skin tone mixture, kind of greenish a bit, so why not to take this green umber. Maybe too strong, too much. But this shoulder looks very pale, so we can just make it like that. This one, no, it's too strong and too cold. So I'm getting back. When I squint, I see that it is not so bright, so I will just make it slightly darker, and this part too. and green umber, the darks in the hair. And you see now we are starting to have this distribution of the values. So I keep the light parts until the end, because I want to establish relationships first. Everything looks very raw, as you can see, very patchy. Nothing is looking like it should on the final painting, but it is developing. So now I just want to finally key some occlusions and darker shapes to keep them on the painting, like this one here. The ear will be there, the brow, the forehead now. You can even try to map them. You see the glabella is kind of darker than the forehead, so we can just quickly indicate it to an inside of the eye socket. This the eye itself. So such approach, I highly recommend to paint very direct. I know it can be difficult because we are constantly afraid of losing the drawing. But with practice, we can paint with more confidence, and eventually we will be able to find the drawing back at any stage, because it is very normal that drawing can be lost and found. So now let us use some reds here, reds there. Then we need some greens. No, too strong. Too much noise. So I will just make it like that. You see how strong this Venetian red can be, so be very careful when you mix. We don't really need strong reds now. Time for strong colors will come later. Yeah, I forgot to mention the size of the canvas. It is 12 by 16 inches. For me, very comfortable size for such practice. Smaller will require more precision the blocking, and the bigger will just take slightly longer time to render. So this size. Let's continue. The break is over. And the first thing I want to do, while I was drinking coffee, the paint, the surface became more dry, which is good. And you see what I'm doing now? With a clean, soft, white brush, with a very big, thick brush, I'm just blending the darks together. I'm cleaning my palette. Okay, so first I want to mix some shadows again. Umber. Okay, we need more green umber now. So despite painting thinly and transparently, I use, as you can see, I use a lot of pigment actually to cover everything and just to mix things. So do not skimp on pigment. And the good thing is that all those earth pigments, regardless of the brand, they are very affordable. Okay, so let's revisit this first. Here, this line, probably like that. The brow, I still believe that it should be slightly higher, or maybe the eye lower. But at this point, it is difficult to judge because every time I look at the face in general, the lips are screaming for attention because they are obviously not correct. Okay, here the dark shape. So as you can see, I'm revisiting my drawing at this. I'm revisiting it here, and I want to define this area a little bit better, slightly better. So I've diluted it too much, as you can see. So I'm wiping the exceeds of the medium from the brush. Yes, I think it was too much. So I take the green again, and I want to map this dark hair. So maybe green umber. Let's try green umber and raw sienna light, because I need it to be lighter and a little bit more yellower. So I see some shift to the yellow primary. I step back and look again. Yes, some sort of gradation of the different greens in this part. And since we're working tonally, it's enough just to use generic greens. The actual color will come later. And you will see that the actual color, sometimes it's just the color of the halftones, some indications of certain colors in the halftones or in the accents, and in many cases it's just enough, especially for the skin tone, for the skin tones, especially when the skin is so pale. Because for darker skin, we can mix saturated mixtures, they're going to work. But for the pale skin, the values are more important than the colors. Okay, it seems like my mixture, my medium mixture is, there is too much of mineral spirits. So I will, from now on, I will use less of it, maybe no medium at all. So yeah, because I'm quite satisfied with the first layer, how diluted it is, so I can just continue working without it. Because you see what's going on, it is not adhering properly, so I have to spend more time with a soft brush, and it is not even. So me personally, I don't really like it now. Probably I should have used more of Galkit light in the mixture, in this medium. But anyways, this stage, and yeah, I will not use it later. I will not use it when the surface is dry, because it is very lean medium. All my mediums later are going to be fat mediums. Oleo gel or walnut oil gel or epoxide oil gel or Venetian medium, they are fat mediums. This medium in the beginning of today's session is lean medium. More greens here in the temple area. Don't worry if shadows look too patchy. Just try to make it even as possible, and it's enough. Okay, now let us map this part, because here there is a change of the planes. Like I can see the corner here, just above, not corner, I mean or we can say corner, the edge here just above the brow. So I mix again. Let's start with a raw sienna, a bit of Latin yellow. You see, it's why I like Latin yellow, because it is quite pale. So if I was using cadmium yellow, for example, the color will be too strong. So I will have to compensate it with a complementary. But now we can just have it like that. Maybe more. Let's mix more of it. And I use this light blue. Maybe a little bit of burnt umber, yes, to create additional transition here. So let's try to use it now. Yes, this one. I see some blue primary here, and I just indicated. And the top of the forehead is more yellow, which is what we normally expect. And this brow ridge is beautifully bluish. I really like it. Yeah, normally the pale skin is quite a challenge, especially in the soft light. So I'm happy that there is such a nice reference to practice pale skin. Okay, so now we go here. Let's work here a bit. So when you work tonally like today, like I work today, you worry less about the color. So you see, I can just, I pick colors from the palette in more relaxed way. So mostly it's just, I need some dark, and I just make this, I decide how warm or how cold this dark should be, and I just pick it up from here, for example, this dark. It's okay for now. Like the corner of the eye, tear duct, I think it should be slightly warmer. So I just take a bit of red primary and I apply it there. The rest can be more neutral or even more green. So let us, but first I want to find the best placement for the iris of the eye. It should be more green, so maybe I can just replace it. Yes, I can use this green umber. Okay, now revisiting the brow. So you see, I'm making things darker as I go. And now dark again. And I'm checking how the edge of the cast shadow here in the nose, where it is situated. It is somehow in between the iris of the eye and the tear duct shape. So it is ending somewhere here. So now I can just indicate it like that. Okay, good. You see the brush is smaller, so I can be more accurate. And I can try to find the nostril again. Slightly lighter this plane. And a bit of colder halftone here. Something like that. And yeah, let's revisit the lip just for a moment. So probably the center is here. I want to indicate the changes in the planes in the philtrum. Again, quite loosely. And I also see some kind of greenish gray color there. Now it looks too dark, so I will make it slightly lighter. Yes, something like this probably. So you see my mixtures are getting slightly thicker now. And again, I want to bleed this red out of the lip first. And now I'm blending it back here. A little occlusion here, just dark shape. I hope you can see how earth pigments can, I don't really feel like lack of colors now. I was going to make such tutorial for quite a long time already. This plane, the top of the cheekbone structure, receives more light usually, if the light is coming from above. And here the light is coming from above and from the side. So technically it is still from above, although it is not like we used to see in more traditional academic references. Okay, so what is going on now? Let's revisit the shadow again. This. Now I'm trying to find the best possible placement for the neck. I try to see, like what I see now, that it is aligned with the corner of the eye. Maybe just a bit to the left from it. So maybe we can just erase this part. And again, I'm taking the big brush, soft mongoose brush, and I just smooth things again, blend the shadows together. I don't want this red to contaminate my white, and I will definitely need more white soon. But first, the lower lip. Oops, what is that? The bottom of her chin looks quite greenish, like a pale green. I like it. I will try to focus on it later when it comes to color. This part still looks a bit wider, so I will try to make it like that. Okay, so let assume that we have general indication of things, especially of the darks and the halftones. Looks quite ugly, very patchy, disconnected, especially this part. Doesn't really matter. What do we do now? And this is the most important part of tonal approach, at least of such approach, when we establish luminosity first and render things later. Because many times you can see that I start with the general shadows and I continue with general halftones, and after I apply the lights and I just establish the lights and so on. Today I want to make things differently. I want to paint the lights lighter than I see them and cover them later on the second stage of painting. So I want to map the luminosity. I want the first layer to shine through later. So I will be covering this. It is not the grisaille, but it is something quite similar in logic, that we are establishing the lights and the darks first, and we are applying glazes and just more marks to render things and to establish the color. So again, the lightest light in the whole composition is this, the top of the hair. This part which is facing the light. So what I do, on top of my initial raw amberish mixture, I apply lead white straight from the tube, and I use bristle brush, you see, to create kind of a hairy texture. Be advised, if you are using titanium instead of lead, titanium is going to be way brighter than lead. So mix it with something, just a bit of raw amber or a bit of yellow will make your titanium less bright, and it will be more appropriate for such approach. So what do I do now? I just paint the lighter skin, the lightest halftones in the skin lighter than I see them. I'm mapping the light in the skin, and I want it to be visible later. It is how we can create luminosity. The lead white is weaker than titanium, so I need a lot of it. Titanium is going to be less thick, and it will take longer time to dry. So for the next stage, wait for it to dry thoroughly. It is very important. Because if it is not dry enough and you oil it out, it will smudge the lights. And we don't want it we don't want the white to get into the shadows. So now I want to finish this part of the hair. And with this white we can start to create gradation. Latin yellow is another very important pigment for such practice. Okay, now it's time to make more proper rendering of this lighter part of the face. So I have now bright yellows on my palette, I mean light value yellows. With a white I'm mixing, and with a little bit of blue I want to mix this value here, because it will help me to separate the head from the neck. And now a bit yellower. And you see, I'm focusing now on sculpting the lights with white. So as I said, lead white is more natural for such application because it is quite yellow and it is not so bright. But even if your titanium is pure white when you apply it, don't worry, you will just have to paint over it later, semi-transparently. My goal is just, as I said, luminosity. I apply even more white here now, because the thickness of the paint, especially when it is lead white, will contribute to the luminosity. Now with a softer brush, I do the same as with the shadows, but now I'm distributing, I'm just smoothing the lights. I'm working opposite, with the same approach, but from opposite side of the value scale. So I'm blending the lights into each other. You see, I didn't touch this part at all with my white. It is how I will avoid chalkiness. So in case if my contrast between the lights and darks is too strong, I will not make the darks lighter, I will just make the lights, I will not make the darks lighter, yes, I will just make the lights darker using color. So eventually the skin will still look porcelain. Should be darker and more yellow. And since umber is yellow, we can use it as well. But also we can use Latin yellow too. A bit of lighter mixture in the hair. More blending of the lights. Okay, the lightest part of the forehead, the hair. Now I can focus on the neck and all those really subtle transitions there. That's so beautiful. Especially this green, gray-green transitional halftone. Now I have, let's say, basic indication of all groups of values. Not the proper representation yet, but some sort of the beginning of it, of relationships. Burnt umber and green umber. Here the nose. a nostril and another nostril. Now I'm trying to model properly, not the final modeling, but just trying to get it better. The Latin yellow is one of my favorite pigments. Now, I'm happy that I've discovered it some time ago. It is very good for the skin tones. So if you are just starting out and you don't want to spend a fortune on the pigments, I would recommend to buy this one, maybe to sacrifice another fancy ones. So probably for portraiture you definitely don't need expensive blues or greens, but you need really good red, and this Latin yellow is even more important. Because as you can see, this cheap Venetian red works pretty well. It is earth-looking pigment, but it is slightly colder, so it is something similar to, in temperature it is close to quinacridone red. So it is not as warm as vermilion. Because for the warmth today we have burnt umber. It is warm enough. But this subtlety of Venetian red is quite surprising. Although for my taste, it is too predictable and boring pigment. But at this stage, at tonal stage of painting, I really like how it looks. So how it behaves. So the main goal of this stage is first, of course, the drawing and establishing of the lights, like luminosity effect. But also, I do believe we have to try to render the shapes, at least in focal point, as good as possible. So when it dries, we can quickly add some colors. By the way, I haven't used Bone Black, at least a lot, just for some dark mixtures in the beginning. It's quite interesting. I think it's time to do another break before the third part of today's session. The break is over. I'm back to the canvas. So what do I see now? I think I should finish the drawing of the side. The side of the face looks a bit wider than it should. Yeah, every time when you decide to work in layers, not a la prima, but rather 2-3 sessions, if you made such decision, try to focus on certain problems at once. Let's say, just solve the problems one by one. Do not try to solve all of them, lest you will just get overwhelmed by the pressure. Now I want to get back to my background mixture. So most likely I will have to paint the background here. I think it's time to revisit this shadow here to fix the issues with the drawing, and also just to see what is going on in the neck, in the shadows. Well, technically speaking, the shadows in the face and the shadow in the neck are the same value, but I will make decision later if I want it to be the same or I want the face to be slightly lighter in the shadow, because I don't want to copy everything in the reference. I want to use the reference and to study it in order to create the painting. There is no point for me to try to copy the image I see on the screen. I want to create something unique, something which fits to my taste, which is making me happy. You should focus on luminosity if you see that your paintings, they look more like prints than paintings themselves. So even if values are correct, even if drawing is correct, sometimes there is just a lack of three-dimensionality, lack of certain illusion. Of course, drawing is important and the values are important. But at the same time, since we are dealing with oil painting, we can use the benefits of such medium. Okay, I see now what should be done with the lights. So I have to incorporate more white, but at the same time I should add more halftones, especially here in the nose, the side of the nose here. Yeah, with a tonal approach, the pigments I use, they're really sufficient. I like it. Both raw sienna and Venetian red. So this side of the face, this cheek, I want it to be darker. And now I see it more properly. I see that it is darker. So let us just use raw sienna light. So I will just add this raw sienna mixture to my lights here. This. Here's some grays and here's some grays too. So smaller the canvas, smaller the brushes. But most importantly, if you don't want to work on the big canvas or big panel, try to, if your, let's say, if your panel is small or if your canvas is small, use the finest weave possible for the canvas, or just prepare very smooth panels. There is a certain bluish tint here in the side of the upper lip. And I really like to push this red. Such unexpected, subtle changes. Very delicate mixtures. So my advice, no matter your taste, I know many of you, me myself included, we like to paint with colors, we like to push the colors, but to learn how to do it properly, especially to learn how to work with values, we need to paint in such way, in a very tonal way. At least in the beginning. Doesn't mean that it should work always, but practice is important, and it is the reason why we paint this reference. Now I want to revisit the lower lip to make it slightly thicker or just higher. It will always be like that, back and forth, back and forth. One step forward, two steps backwards. Especially when it comes to the lips. Now I revisit this part of the hair because it is too bright, should be darker. And yes, I think the blocking is complete and the value distribution is established. So every time when I deal with such lighting, with a diffused light and with such skin, I will approach it this way. So I'm not trying to solve all the problems at once in alla prima. So for alla prima I will choose stronger light, sharper light, so the shadows will help me to turn the form and so on. So in such cases like today, like this one, yeah, I recommend to work tonally first, just to indicate the lightest light, to make a drawing, to make the lights look brighter than on the reference, because we need this luminosity, we need this light to shine through. I think it's time to apply more white. Yes, and you can see now how contrast is increasing. And only now I really start to feel the sculptural effect. So the thickness is important. Now I want to make it softer here, in this part. And I also want to indicate the highlight here, and a bit of light there too. Just below the glabella. It is the next day, and I started to look at the reference and to look back at the painting. I noticed that, first of all, I was trying to paint straight head, but when I look at the reference, I see certain inclination in the gesture of the head. So the center line is not straight, it should be inclined, just maybe 2 degrees to the right. But the biggest problem, the most severe problem is here. Because when I step back and when I look at my painting, I see that general shape is more or less okay. Placement of the head is correct. The distances, my initial decision here was absolutely correct. This is correct. Even the lips are situated correct, but the eyes are too low. So I've decided to record additional footage. So it is not the second layer yet. It is 1.5 layer. Let's talk about how to proceed. Since the first layer was absolutely crude, you see, like very blocky, nothing is really precise here. I don't care about the small details at all. So first of all, I want to sand down carefully exceeds of paint. Just I don't sand it down, thoroughly, so I don't want the particles of the paint just, to linger in there. I don't want to breathe the dust, so I just remove exceeds of it to prepare it for paint over. So now I take my yesterday's medium, it is Galkit light mixed with Gamson, mineral spirits, and you see everything is absolutely dry. No smudges, even white is totally dry. It is why I love using lead white for the initial stage and the earth pigments too. So my choice of pigments helped painting to dry. You see, it's amazing to dry thoroughly in 24 hours. The biggest issue I've noticed, not the biggest issue, the most evident problem is here. You see, the forehead seems too big comparing to the reference. And I even tried to fix it by increasing the size of the hair, but the hair is rather thin. This band, this shape is not really big. So I take raw umber. First of all, I think the eye should be moved somewhere here. You see? And the secondary eye, this eye is going to be somehow there. For some time, the painting will look very strange, but I'm ready for it. I don't mind. The most important thing for me is to see if I can fix the problem or not. If I cannot, I will just erase everything. So most likely I have to. And now I'm carefully measuring the distance from the yeah, I also think that yes, this looks correct. This shape looks correct. So now here also quite correct. So just maybe slightly higher. Maybe just a bit higher. So I will just indicate eye here and this eye there with a shadow here. And that is how forgiving oil paint can be if we know how to fix the drawing, and if we do, especially if we do it in an early stage of painting. So I'm not going to expand my palette. I'm not going to paint the details or smaller shapes. So now what is really important is to find the placement for the brow, because the brow I was puzzled last time, I was puzzled yesterday about why my brows, on the painting, they don't look like they should look. So probably everything, including labella, should just go higher. Maybe not as high as this one. But first I want to find the placement. So I'm rolling back to my initial measurement, which I've done in the very beginning. So the hairline was here, and I think it was correct. Now I want to find the glabella. So for that, yes, maybe this, something like that. Another brow will go here. So what about this distance between the eye and the brow? Should be, I think the brow should go lower. And since it is still not the rendering phase, I don't really care about how does it look. So if we measure, I use my brush now as measurement point. So from the top of the canvas to the left brow, to the beginning of left brow, the same distance actually as from the from the beginning of the brow to the bottom of the lip, which is good. So this distance, no, it doesn't work. So probably this is too big. So maybe from here to there, a little bit better. So yeah, like this distance and this, or we can make it like that. From here to top, you see, we can take the brush, we can mark it here and find the middle. So probably this is going to be the brow. Wow. Wow, fantastic. Yeah, I think now it is even slightly higher. Yes. So the top of the brow is here. And now I must revisit the whole eye socket structure. Yeah, in many cases, to start a new one is the best possible option. And I do it from time to time. And we know from the books, we know that old masters like John Singer Sargent, he was famous for his how he was erasing the portrait after session after session. So the portrait commission could take, I don't know, 15 to 16 sittings. After each one of them, he would erase in frustration. It doesn't mean that we have to make mistakes, but it gives us insight on how people before us were dealing with the same problems. So I think it is more correct now than before. So let's say if the big idea was wrong, like the face, if face was too long or too wide, or the placement of the head was not really good, I will abandon this piece. I will just, you see, and it is just a tape. So I didn't invest in the panel. I didn't even stretch the canvas. It's just a piece of canvas and masking tape on the board. So it is very easy to just to throw it away, to take another small piece of the canvas and start a new one. But this is a good opportunity, in my opinion. It's a good case of trying to fix important and severe problem. It is why I've decided to continue and to share with you this process. It is already better. It is already better. I feel better too. So we should continue. Now I know that I will have to move the hairline slightly higher I need to get back to this point because obviously it was a good call. So this brow will go like this, and now I can start to think about inclination of the head. So the eyes I check with my brush. So eye is here, the secondary eye is here. Not secondary, the right eye, right for us. Will be here. Now I take lead white and I just cover this part. Okay, so let's say the placement of the eyes is better now. Now the nose. I think it should go slightly higher. But first I want to make it smaller because it looks a little bit too big now when I look at the reference and back into the painting. We still can see the scratches from the sanding. So I take this soft brush and I just scumble things back. What I do now is very traditional. So it's like old masters techniques, I would say. But I doubt old masters will do such mistake with the drawing as I did. So it also means that if you must stay, if your drawing must be really precise, make a transfer. Do not rely on your ability. Yeah, some people, they just draw very, very naturally and they always draw correct. But oil painting can be tricky. Just a little mistake. And yes, and by the way, if we are inclined this way, the mouth should go also this way. So I need to raise this corner, this corner of the mouth, make it slightly higher. So do you see how it is to paint on top of unfinished painting? If the painting was more detailed already, I would suffer a lot because you see like all those ugly marks and smudges. But since it is the early stage, just to begin, I feel myself, I feel much more comfortable. So now we have some sort of gestural inclination. I continue rendering not rendering, just mapping the shapes here in the eye socket. Before I finish this short session, I will redefine the eyes, because I want them to dry in proper representation. A bit of half tone. And also to make slightly darker lower part of the face. Now I want to settle my decisions. Some paintings, they develop very fast and, let's say, in a very comfortable way, with no pressure, just joy of paint. Some paintings, they develop in painful way. After some years of practice, you will see that you never know will painting be successful or not on such stage when you paint it like this. But when you feel attachment, when you feel like certain emotions about your work, it is a good sign. It means that the painting has potential to become some, let's say, extraordinary or just better than average. I like this feeling. The most difficult part is to keep yourself motivated and inspired. It is why we need little successes during the time of painting. So fixing some drawing mistakes is one of the such successes, one of the little pleasures. So I feel, so now with the scumblings of yellow and oranges, I can define the values even more than last time, maintaining luminosity in the previous layers, which I already indicated with white. So you see, on top of that white, we can just scumble things or glaze things. Of course, they are not final. They are not final at all. But they give us certain sense of form. And everything remains very thin. Okay, just a bit of black for this area. Yeah, before I finish, I think I should apply more thickness, more like thicker layer in the skin tones, because everything looks a bit patchy. So maybe I will just mix the forehead first, in the light, I mean. Yeah, what about this? Yeah, it looks good. I take ivory, rosemary ivory flat brush, and I just apply more paint now. With a bit of pigment, because now it seems way too disconnected. So I think it's time to increase the thickness of the paint in the lights. So I'm trying to incorporate some greens into the glabella, because I definitely see some bluish, greenish tints in her skin there. I make everything very soft, since it is not the final, but at the same time I want to match or to describe, let's say to describe the changes of the planes already. Yeah, and this is the power of earth pigments. How fast they dry and how they dictate the value approach over the color approach. Now I try to redefine the terminator line, the core shadow line here. Yeah, now I see that I need to be more accurate with the shapes of her chin, because it is very characteristic. So the bottom plane, the lower plane of her chin is darker, something like that, and even more darker here. So you see, it's more like sculpting, the modeling, very careful modeling of the planes. And I apply warm and cool brush strokes on top of each other to find some neutral representation, just to play with the form. And I just make things softer here. Let's take some lighter mixture. To build up some lights in the planes which are facing the light source. For the irises of the eyes, nothing except just dark placement. I know they're lighter, especially like down below. And I will definitely make them lighter later, but now all I want is the proper placement and the shape. A little indication of a half tone here. Lighter bluish half tone there. And again I'm going to push the lights, because our goal is luminosity. You see, I'm covering this lead white area from before. And I also increase the thickness here in the cheekbone. So with more opaque and thick mixture, I'm now just covering my previous mistake. Now I want to just to get rid of this of the canvas which is visible after sanding. Yeah, so you see, I try to prepare the big areas for rendering. That is why no sharp edges and no actual thickness. Even this burnt umber looks incredibly dark and contrast. So I apply it and I just paint over it. Yeah, we also need it here. So the center line is like that, means the nose should be also tilted just a bit. Yes, my previous choice about the placement of the highlight in the tip of the nose was also not entirely correct, I would say. So I will push it, I will cover it now and decide the actual placement later. Okay, so softening everything. Softening even more here in the shadow. And you can see that this Galkit light medium is really powerful because it dries very fast, as they promised. But the most important is that the paint, the colors, they remain the same. So when you oil out, there is no difference, which is amazing. Because when you work on the complex piece, or even on portrait like this, like today, I am working only in the face. And next time, let's say I will work here in the chest area or in the neck, I will not have to oil out my piece entirely to see the values and colors properly. Even dry, everything will look correct. Just general gradation in the forehead. And thicker I will paint, smoother and more finished the face, the skin tones will look. Yeah, now I want to mix this area just to make it more clean. So with this yellow primary, I add the white too, a bit of blue primary too. And now down below, just slightly darker for gradation, for the sake of gradation, yes. The final thing for today is going to be, again, the lead white, Luminosity. I continue building it up. Increasing the thickness of the lights. Okay, so it will dry, and in a day or two it will be dry enough to continue this process.